As part of our centennial celebrations here at First Pres, as we celebrate 100 years of ministry, one of the things that the Centennial Committee really wanted to do was to get some time with some of our longer standing members of the church and just get a little bit of oral history from these folks who know a lot about the life of First Presbyterian over the years. So I'm here with my buddy Jimmy Bennett, and I looked up early on in this process to see who was the longest standing member of First Presbyterian, and it turns out it's Jimmy. Jimmy was baptized here at First Pres in 1939, and then officially became a member through the confirmation process, I assume, in 1949, which means that Jimmy has been a member at First Presbyterian for 72 years, which is very cool. Your history of being here was tied into, you know, your relationship with your grandparents.
They would pick me up and everything. I used to sit next to my granddaddy, Benjamin Guy Porter. He was wonderful. And he loved the way I wanted to sing, you know.
So I'm here with Jim Allen, who's been, and your family, not just you, have been around First Pres for a really long time.
I was basically born into the church because my parents were members.
So you were born in the church, which means you grew up going to Sunday school here. And then Sunday school, you were involved in children's Sunday school.
I was. I found the two certificates, one that was from the nursery into I guess the primary, and then the next step up to the, it wasn't primary. Then the next step up was to primary. And then I came across my Sunday school attendance pins, which you would earn, and I think I was through something like 7th or 8th year.
And you said you would wear those on your blazer.
On your lapel.
And this was a big badge of honor in the church. So your dad, Bob Davis, was the pastor of the church from 1945 to 1956. Sanctuary is completed, I think, 2 years after you guys leave.
Right.
So what do you remember about all of that?
Dad and the dentist in the church and the fertilizer salesman were the ones appointed by the session to do some preliminary design. So they came up with a set of plans that the session and then the congregation said, yeah, that looks logical. They approved hiring an architect. So the architect came and he looked at the plans and said, well, I don't know why you need me. You all have got it all designed, which I thought was pretty good considering. And he said, but you didn't put a basement in. No basement. But every church has a basement, no basement. So he took what we had and what his thoughts were, and he left, and he came back, and he'd done an official architect type drawing that the builders could work from, and he'd put a basement in. I do remember that we said no basement. He said, but all churches have basements. He said, sir, are you aware of the topography of the area? And he said, well, the beach is up there, and, you know. He said, yeah, and 6 inches down, you're into the water table. Where are you going to put that basement? Mm-hmm. You're going to put the basement over the steeple? Mm-hmm. So there's a little space under there, but it's not much.
Yeah, there's a little basement. So your family were some of the people who broke ground on this building.
When my granddaddy, shoveled the first shovel for building a new church.
So I'm here with David Kunkel, just talking about all of the history and the time that David's taken in and on his time and staff here. So tell me a little bit about your history at First Pres. When did you first start working here? You worked here before you were a member, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when did you start here, and give me the sort of the trajectory of how it all came to be.
I started as organist in February of 1981. I took over as music director in January of 1987. Took over as an administrator in 1989, and up to that point, up until about 1991, I was both organist and music director from 87 until...
And office administrator.
And doing administration. I stopped being administrator in the early 2000s, and in 1991, I got a full-time organist playing here, so I could get out in front of the choir, which improved the choir immediately.
So what are some highlights for you in your time here?
The organ, the whole sequence, from the agony of having so much rejection when we first started talking about it. So many people were against it. And then the way it happened, taking it to the session in the spring, and the session saying, no, we're not going to vote on it. We had 3 congregational meetings. Everybody had their say. We voted, and from the vote to the dedication Sunday morning was 1 year. And when I tell people in the business about that, they look at me with great surprise. Nobody gets it done like that. And also a lot of them with envy because of the how nice that instrument is in there. And it just changed our church. It just changed it in a big way.
I'm here with Johnny Ellis, longtime treasurer of the church. So you give, I mean, people have no idea how much time you give as a treasurer. You're here all the time, but you've also been an elder. I think you've served on like every committee imaginable. So what is it that motivates you to give so much time and energy to the church?
I love the church. And if I have any talents, I want to share them doing some of the things that other people aren't that comfortable doing.
Any favorite moments from your years here?
Us building the endowment was a moment in the church that, we're still benefiting from right now. Still trying to keep that endowment in people's mind and focus because it's so important to us. And it's growing, and we still have people thinking about it. And that to me is one of the best moments. It's not really a moment, but it is crucial to what we have here at the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really significant work that you guys did on behalf of not just the current church, but the longevity of the church.
Yes.
It'll pay dividends
Literally
for a really long time. So I'm here with Pat Ludwig, who was our office manager at the church for many years, but also has been a member for a very long time. So how did that come about? How, as a member, did you then become the office manager of the church?
Well, I worked part-time for the Virginia Beach Symphony.
Oh.
And I was in the choir, so I knew David. David, whoever was the secretary, and she left, and he had one secretary a week for like, 6 or 8 weeks. And I said, well, do you think I could do it? I said, I wouldn't mind trying, because he knew I worked for the symphony, so he knew I could do it. And he said, well, yeah, but at least that would give me a chance to see if I could find somebody. So that's how it all came about.
You decided to stay, obviously, and then
Oh,
stayed
yeah.
for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And who was the pastor when you started?
Scotty Griffin,
When you retired?
David Kagan.
So you saw a lot of things. You saw a lot of change in the church in that time period too.
Yeah.
When you're on staff, you see a very different side of things, right?
Yeah.
And after all the years serving here, that you didn't get tired of being here,
No.
that you still wanted to be here Monday through Friday, and then roll in on Thursday night for choir and roll in on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, that says a lot, because
Yeah.
that's a lot of hours in this building.
Yeah.
I'm here with Bill Hedrick, former associate pastor of the church, longstanding participant in the life of the church, founder of Tidewater Pastoral Counseling. So you've worn a lot of hats in this congregation. What do you think First Pres should be really proud of as we hit this 100-year milestone?
Historically, it has been one of the churches in Presbytery that becomes a model church. It has the leadership, it has the vision, it has the history of bringing Christ to life in the ministry that we have in the community. The simple thing that makes First Presbyterian Church different is the quality of leadership that it has had, both clergy and especially lay people. So as a church, I think we have been a beacon of light in all the dark times that we need to get through.
So what comes to mind for you as really important moments in the life of the church that you've seen, that you've witnessed in your time?
It's probably what happened in the last 3 years, and how a church responds in a crisis time, and whether there is a sense of hope and expectation, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to be healthy, and we're going to come out the other end, and we will be stronger as a result of this. I think that's what has made this church viable, and probably one of the strongest churches in Presbytery. I think the church has always been a mission church. A part of our mission is not only to provide joyful worship and challenging sermons, but also to be a witness in the community. From parish day school to senior living, Westminster Canterbury, on all spectrums. The birth of things like ministry to medical.
Yeah, Beach Health Clinic.
Beach Health Clinic. A pastoral counseling center that's 50 years old. So I mean, the service continue to grow, and much of the visioning of what is in place has to do with creating ministries that have a life of their own and continue to grow. And I think there's something for everybody in this congregation. I mean, people in the congregation are varied. I mean, they come from different ages, very, very different cultural values, etc. There's something that will allow each member of the congregation to become involved in meaningful activity that gives expression to the faith that they have, that Jesus Christ is Lord, and He's a part of who we are, and that Spirit is inside of me.
I love tradition. I love the ministers. I love scripture reading, and songs. Everything combined into one. I love. I know. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, really. It's a wonderful church. It's a wonderful, congregation.
It was just my church.
You never even considered anything else?
No.
I like the fact that this is still a very friendly church. And people in the congregation are welcoming to outsiders that come.
Yeah.
That they're not sort of left there. The church welcomes also people with disabilities, because they're churches that either can't or won't.
Yeah.
Some of them physically can't manage a wheelchair, whereas we've got lots of spaces for wheelchair people to sit.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a great congregation still, and it's why it was my home church, and everybody, I think, if they get a chance, tends to want to go back to their home church. I'm glad I came back. I really am glad I came back to this church.
Everything. I've loved to watch the way we went from what we were when I came here in '81 to what we are now. I don't want to say we weren't a welcoming church back then, but there was a different kind of congregation with different views about things. Today, we're much more inclusive, and we have a lot of people that are a different type than were here in the early 80s. And that's good. I've enjoyed watching that. I love that. I love the building. I still stand out there and look at the front of it, the steeple. I mean, I've been here all these years and I still stop and look at it. I love the sanctuary, and to come in here, come in at night when the lights are off, see the organ pipes in the dim light and all that. I just love that.
I owe so much money. I just love it. It's a part of a major part of my life, and I like the people. I like the programs that we have, without question.
I tell you, it feels like home to me. When I first came in here to worship, I felt like it was my home. I was supposed to be here. I love the people here. I love the building. I just like being in it. I just like the way I feel when I walk in it. To be in the sanctuary, to be in the chapel, and I really feel close to God then.